community to address the theory of change. And then we're going to be talking about different member groups that have emerged, and a lot of this from what you all have been doing here and how you've been participating in Together Culture, and talk about some specific opportunities for getting more involved as we move forward through this year. Of course, money does underpin a lot of what we do as well. So we're going to address our financial sustainability. I'm going to talk you through our P&L, our profit and loss statement, our forecast for this current year. And then I'm also going to talk you through what does scaling up scenarios look like. So what we've been doing here at 5 Fitzroy Street is a prototype, and prototypes are great, but like any startup, they're not necessarily designed to be profitable. They are designed to build momentum and to test ideas around your revenue streams. And that's what we have been doing over the first 3 months of the year, and that's what we'll keep doing this year. And then I'm going to talk you through some of the scenarios for how do we scale up into the future and how do we achieve a financially secure position. And of course, that means we've got to raise more money. So the last section is, where does capital come from? I think a lot of us here are very interested in the beyond capitalism world. We're not there yet, but we can help to create it. And so we are going to need some capital to be able to progress Together Culture. So I'm going to talk you through our incorporation model, so how we set ourselves up originally to do that, and to talk you through financing prospects and what the work that we're going to be doing in a fundraising capacity over this coming year. And then also there is a community ownership option that's on the table right now, and I want to just share that with you to get your feedback. How does that sound? Good? Good. Yes. Very good.
And just to flag that we are going to be recording today, just so everyone's aware.
Could people hear that on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that was very clear. Thank you.
Right. How do we create impact? So disclaimer, this section is the longest section. I will absolutely keep it on time because we've already done it once. So we will finish ahead of time, but settle in. It is going to be the chunkiest bit of the presentation today. Okay, so this is the top line of our theory of change, which hangs on the wall down there. And I know most of you have probably come to an orientation, and Ellie's talked you through it. I'm going to go through it right now as well, just to make sure that it's more crystal clear in people's minds. So in the center of the slide, you see our impact statement. So what's going to be different in 10 years' time because we exist? So effectively, by 2033, Together Culture will have helped a more progressive, creative economy emerge here in Cambridge by gathering a community, that's you, that embodies a culture that's more equitable, caring, experimental, and ecological, and is contributing to the redistribution, creation, and sharing of prosperity. In other words, we want to contribute to building a more inclusive and ecological creative economy. So how do we do that? Now, these circles represent our 3 major outcomes, and the arrows in between are the core activities that we're doing that relate to each of those outcomes. And the reason it's a circle, it's a cycle, is because these activities are things that we do on an annual basis, and each year the results, the outcomes build. So by 2033, we want to have thousands of people as part of our community. People who may identify and think of themselves as a social entrepreneur or an artist, but really creative individuals who are interested in changing things and being able to connect to people so that it isn't just them, but they can do more in collaboration with other people. And so in terms of building the community itself, that's a lot of the work that we do to help folks develop their individual creative practice. That's having this workspace and this community space as a starting point. And then it's a lot of those events that we run that help people to explore culture, how culture is formed, and to develop an understanding for how we change culture. The next major outcome, and I realize that on this screen, it's difficult to see that. It doesn't look great, does it? So what that says is a culture of creative and collaborative citizenship will be embedded in the community. So just bringing people together, great. But then how do you bring people together so they start to embrace similar values, similar behaviors, so that when you walk into a Together culture space, you feel a different way. And actually, it's a bit different than it is in the outside world. And sure, we'd all like the rest of the world to probably feel the way that it does here, but the starting point is to embed that culture here. So what are we doing to help build a culture? Well, that's the next tranche of activities. That's this collaborative, creative practice work that we're doing. So when we talk about the Living Book events, that's a huge part of establishing culture. The Living Book events are based on our 4 key values, and then behaviors to help live those values, and a toolkit to lean into those behaviors in different situations. Sometimes we're our best selves. Oftentimes we are not. So having a toolkit is really helpful for that. And then, of course, the collaborative creative practice is embodied in the Citizen Studio. So when we get together, for the people who are in the room, to explore that question that sits on that big blackboard behind you, if in 10 years' time, our neighborhood, the Kite, was the heart of Cambridge's more ecological and inclusive creative economy, what would be different, and where do we start today? That is the start of our Citizen Studio. So each year a question emerges from the community, and we take part in a series of 90-minute sessions where we either practice or learn design thinking, where we come up with answers to that question. When we run these sessions for 3 months, priorities begin to emerge. So we get a sense of what this community, embodying this culture, wants to do in the outside world. This is the contribution we want to make to Cambridge. That then feeds into the third outcome. So the third outcome is we will be supporting the measurable emergence of a more inclusive and ecological creative economy. Great. How do we plan on doing that? Well, those are the activities that help put ideas into action. So predominantly, that's our Systems Change Incubator. So we're encouraging people to come along to the Business Unusual Upskilling for Change Makers workshops that we're running that start on Monday. And we are anticipating that the group of people who will participate in the first Systems Change Incubator are probably going to come from the folks who turn up to the Business Unusual workshops. And those people will effectively act as co-founders to develop prototypes that respond to the priorities that come out of the Citizen Studio. And so it's in that way that Together Culture makes decisions as a community about how we are going to invest membership fees to seed those new enterprises that we develop together. And it's in that way that we take action and we create new products, new services, new programs that begin to have an impact, not just for us here in this community, but in Cambridge as a whole. That's the plan. Another way of looking at the theory of change, and again, this is another top-line snapshot. So there is a 42-slide deck if anybody's ever interested in going through it. It was 3 months of work that we did in 2022, and more than 150 people were involved in the co-design. And so effectively what this is our future backwards. So across the top, if these are our outcomes by 2033, where do we want to be by 2028? And when we got kickstarted in 2023, what did we want to achieve? So in 2023, we wanted a home. Here it is, tick. That home helped us to gather the community. And then over here, effectively in the culture pillar, we wanted members to start building bonds and collaborating in organic ways. Tick, that happened. And we wanted to start developing the Citizen Studio and the plans for the Systems Change Incubator. Tick. That was last year. This year, we need to start taking that bit further and moving towards this 2028 middle ground, working towards our 2033 objectives. Before I start telling you all about our milestones and our objectives for 24, I wanted to take you back because I don't think everybody knows about the origins of Together Culture, and I think it's helpful to understand the future from the vantage point of how we got to this point in the first place. So 2021 is actually when all of this began. That's when Together Culture was incorporated, and I developed a business concept and then brought together an advisory board to start understanding Cambridge a bit more and understanding how to shape the concept and research that supported the concept that it was needed, and to figure out the nuts and bolts of how to make it work. And the advisory board, Matt Berman, who runs Cambridge Junction, sat on that board. Kirk Wolford, who's the director of research for ARU, sat on that board. Akua Obeng Frimpong, who is a senior arts advisor for Cambridge City Council, sat on that board. Some local business angels sat on that board. That's how I met Ellie. Ellie, who is helping to run motion sickness, sorry, at the time, and was on that board. So that's how we developed the concept. And it's back then, in summer of 21, that we started talking to the Grafton Center about getting a space. Took some time. So in 2021, we moved from business concept effectively to developing the business model. So that's when we started running co-creation sessions at Cambridge Junction to put a little bit more meat on the bones of what came out of the advisory board work. That's when we developed our partnership with Abe Rogers Design, because we needed space to do whatever we wanted to do. So we needed an architectural and design partner who could do a lot of drawings and help us figure out how the different components could fit into different spaces. We've had several different options over the past 3 years. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. It's in 2022, it was autumn 2022 that we really dug into doing the co-design work that I told you about, and we did work all over Cambridge, and that was really fun. And it was on the back of that that we developed a business model, a theory of change, a brand key, and we effectively had plans for both our prototype and then what we wanted to learn from our prototype, and then how we were going to scale it up. Which brings us to 2023. So in 2023, what we did was, part of what Together Culture does is co-design and community design, and we have our own methodology for doing that. So we put that into practice. We did a big piece of work for Railpen this time last year around the Botanic Place development and the Flying Pig controversy. So that was great to kind of test that out and get our co-design services on the map and our first client. Then it was about gathering people and our early streams of revenue. And as far as our membership was concerned, that's why we ran our Story of Us studio. And 75 founding members came on board over the spring and summer of 23. Together, we wrote the Together Culture Manifesto, and we built our installation at the Fitzwilliam, our Cabinet of Curiosities. Some of us, like Kester, helped to physically build the thing, which we did with our partners at Makespace. That was fantastic. But that was our first sort of home and place where we could gather people. And that then led to our prototype and finally convincing folks that, you know what, you should really give us a go. We know what we're doing, we're serious, and we can get organized. So please, can we have something on Fitzroy Street? And that led to Fitzroy Street opening in October. And by the end of 2023, we shut the doors for Christmas with 200 paying members. How are we tracking that any of that mattered? Now, these are KPIs that we have gathered since October 23. So an FYI, or just awareness that it is only 3 months of data, but that's the benchmark against which we'll build over the course of 2024. And then we can start looking at it year on year. The first area that we were tracking is awareness. And that means sort of awareness within Cambridge, people who aren't yet members. What are the indicators that people are interested and that there's a pipeline of people who might become members? So obviously there's things like the mailing list. Oh gosh, sorry about that. Don't look at that yet. There are things like the mailing list, and we have a non-member mailing list with an open rate that's at 58%. And for marketing people out there will know that's actually kind of incredible. That's way above any benchmark. And we have a click-through rate of 4%. So if you're ever wondering why there's so much information when you open one of your emails from us, it's because of this. We know people are reading them. So, but they're not clicking through much. So we're just making sure we pack it with info that you don't have to click through on. We did sell 154 event tickets in 3 months to people who are not members. And we picked up over 2,000 new followers on our social media pages. Now, how about member engagement? what are our indications that people who have become members are actually involved and interested in being more involved with Together Culture? Well, the mailing list open rate for members is at 62%. Again, it absolutely is gobs beyond any sort of industry standard or benchmark. Your click-through rate is 5%. We'd love that to be higher, but hey ho, we'll get there someday. 182 event tickets in 3 months were sold to members. Now, in terms of how often you're here, 30% of community members are here once a week or more. 22% of workspace members visit us once a week, and 74% of workspace members are here more than once a month. So there's no good or bad with that. Really what we're trying to figure out is what are the patterns? What are the rhythms? So if we were a gym, we would buy so many treadmills so that when people come, nobody's ever queuing for a treadmill, or it happens very, very rarely. So we don't anticipate everybody using the space at once, because frankly, even if you all came, if you were all to come to Together Culture on the same day now, we would be at max capacity. It would be very boisterous and nobody would be getting any work done. It could be fun, but it wouldn't necessarily be functional. So, and what we're really doing here is not necessarily calling this good or bad, but just trying to understand it. I would say that we would love people to be here more often, but we also know that some of that has to do with the space that's currently available, and that people within the workspace, when we scale up, if we are able to have more privacy, so on and so forth, but we do anticipate people being here more frequently. We're testing and trying to understand. And then the last column and the last group of indicators that I want to share with you is leadership. And by leadership, I mean members who are stepping up and are doing things not just for their own creative practice, but for the community as a whole. So some of the ways that we're gauging that are 25% of members are participating in activities that serve other members. They're volunteering on Saturday lounges. They are developing master classes that we're using online for our fundraiser. They are leading and running their own workshops. 61% of members, that means 61% of workspace members are participating in broader TC activities. So I should just say 25% means the entire membership. And then when we look at the members of the workspace, the people who have a dedicated workspace upstairs predominantly, it ratchets up quite considerably. So 61% of that group of people are participating in broader Together Culture activities. And in terms of our renewal rate, at present, 95% of members on a month-to-month basis are renewing. And for the most part, that's an average across Q4 of 23. And when we look at it on a month-to-month basis, it's often that really there's attrition rate of like a person, something along those lines. So that was 23, but we're in a whole new year now that it's 2024. And what is going to be different, what do we hope will be different at the end of 2024 from our vantage point of January? So first, I'm going to talk you through just outcomes. So just sort of qualitatively. So we're hoping that we see evidence of a deepened commitment of the Together Culture membership to the Together Culture community. We're hoping that Together Culture is viewed as having an important role or a critical role within the change ecosystem of Cambridge, full stop. So we're working on building partnerships with other organizations that have similar missions. So I think everyone knows that we're working quite closely with ARU. We're having conversations with Abbey People about work we can do together, with Cambridge Science Center, just to give you a couple examples. Okay, this one. We want our deal flow role in the local economy to be quite well established. So what do I mean by that? So that means going back to that Systems Change Incubator, an area of opportunity and an area of differentiation, something quite unique to Together Culture within the group of people who are focusing on how do we provide greater equality and social mobility within Cambridge. One of the things that makes us unique is we focus on building local enterprises with local people for the benefit of the local economy and helping local people to run and to benefit from those enterprises. And the idea behind what Together Culture is that we would provide seed money to prototype those things, which I don't know if we all know, but trust me, if you've done it before, that first amount of seed capital is well nigh impossible to come across. You have to have won the birth lottery somehow, because you're probably going to be talking to somebody who's got a savings account that can help you out, or you're taking on personal debt. So that's a really big deal. I'll talk more about this when we get to capital opportunities, but this is actually an opportunity for us to raise significant capital for scaling up as well. Somebody's got to do it, and nobody wants to take the risk. Right, we want to expand our revenue streams with our creative services. So that's the work that we do beyond 5 Kids for a Street, that co-design work, that community design work, kind of strategic consultancy stuff. Clearly, we want a long-term or a permanent space. By the time we close the doors for December or for Christmas at the end of this year, I want to know where we're going next. And I'm really hoping that place we've got at least a 10-year lease on that place. We want to have secured at least £500,000 worth of capital to enable us to move into that place. And we want a capital pipeline of at least £5 million. Our OKRs, so by OKRs, I mean objectives and key results, or qualitatively, how are we going to be measuring that we've made some progress against these outcomes? We're hoping we're going to be running some surveys, so on and so forth as well, and probably doing some focus groups, not really focus groups, conversations, because we talk to you all the time. But we need to, in conjunction with securing that capital, we need to be able to quantify some of these things for the folks that make those decisions about if they're going to invest in us or not. So we're hoping that 90% of our members are going to feel connected to the community when we ask them. We're hoping that 80% of you will have developed friendships that you don't think you would have if Together Culture didn't exist. Hopefully you're meeting people with different life experiences that you wouldn't have met otherwise. We're hoping that at least 70% of you are feeling grounded, rooted, and proud of your creative abilities and your agency and the importance that you have to be a leader to make change happen. We're hoping that 50% of you are feeling as though your well-being has improved in some way because you're part of Together Culture. And we're hoping that 50% of you think, you know what, I can see myself in the theory of change. I get it. And then breaking this down into the quant, or the KPIs. When we show you our forecast later, it says 400 members, but our stretch target is 500 members. We're at 205 already. And okay, 400 would be 100% increase, but we did that in 3 months. So we think that we should actually be a little bit more, what do I want to say? What's the word I'm looking for?
Ambitious.
Ambitious, thank you very much. We're hoping that we hit at least a 75% membership renewal rate. Again, that's baseline. I really hope it's higher than that. So that would break down, these 500 members would break down to 200 paying community members, 200 ARU members. So by that, in terms of our partnership with ARU pays for students to have Together Culture memberships. There are roughly 100, actually that's a lie. There are 50 ARU student members today, and we are working with them on another contract to extend that to 200. We anticipate there being 35 creative workspace members, people with a designated workspace here, 65 pay what you can members, and we're going to ask you to help us with that. So the Together Culture forecast and concept is based on for every 100 fully paying members that we offer 25 memberships to people who don't have the capacity to pay at full price, and they might need free membership. So we want to be recruiting more of those folks, and there are some of those folks already within the membership, but that's private. We're hoping that 50% of you participate in the Citizen Studio. I cannot underscore this more, If you're here, please book into a Citizen Studio session. That's effectively Together Culture Democracy. And we really, really want your voice to be heard. And we desperately need your ideas to be a part of it. So if you do one event in the next 3 months, make it the Citizen Studio, please. We're hoping that 25% of members participate in this series of Living the Living Book events. So there are 5 Living the Living Book workshops altogether. They're all based on the Living Book itself. And that ties back to our culture. So the people who participate in all the Living Book events effectively become cultural ambassadors or cultural champions for Together Culture. And we're hoping that at least 15% of members are serving other members in some capacity, which basically means just building on the work that's already happening. Because in 2023, we even exceeded this percentage, but we're just taking into account that there will be more of us and people will be at different stages of their connection to Together Culture. I'm almost done. I know this is a chunky bit, but the last point that I really want to make to you is these are the events and activities that we're promoting in Q1 2024. It's our winter series of events. And I just wanted to explain to you how they're all connected and how they connect to that theory of change. So we have our resolution for regeneration event series. These are the conversations and the workshops that we have. They usually happen in the evening. And we are exploring things like how we think like an ecosystem. A woman from the British Antarctic Survey is going to come along. She's an ecosystem expert, and she's going to be talking about flows. And then someone from donut economics will be there that same night, and we're going to say, well, this is how krill exist, and this is how flows exist in the waters of Antarctica. What happens if we design our economy to look like that? What would be different, and what would the outcomes be? We're exploring things like how do we share prosperity and redistribute wealth radically. So we have a conversation with Jay Kamen, who is one of the co-founders of the Good Ancestor Movement, and then working with people who've inherited considerable wealth who want to be on the front lines of redistribution and getting rid of it purposefully. And then we have Nikki Shepard from Abbey People talking about what it means to live generation after generation in poverty, and what it really takes, how that affects your mindset, and how redistribution could be helpful. So we're going to connect the dots there. And it starts the first event was on Monday, and the second event is actually this coming Thursday, a week from today, where we have local historians, a professor at ARU and a local historian who's going to be giving a tour of this neighborhood, the Kite, and talking about how wealth inequality emerged here. And so that's really all of this. The point that I'm trying to make is we designed it so that it's knowledge and information that can help us with our Citizen Studio work. So these are ideas and concepts that we want to discuss together, make meaning out of big concepts for us, and then apply it when we sit down and we do our Citizen Studio sessions. And then at the same time, we've got these business unusual workshops that are happening where, as I was saying, it's upskilling for change makers. So it's the skills that we need to transition what comes out of Citizen Studio into new prototypes. So it's co-design, it's community design, it's systems thinking, it's playing with the business model canvas, it's looking at incorporation, new types of incorporation models that enable you to run a business that align with your impact measures and your values. And this is the last slide in this section. So thank you so much for being attentive. These are our milestones. So effectively, this is the top line of what our operational plan looks like for 2024 to be able to achieve everything that I've been talking about. Across the top, you see the breakdown into each quarter of the year. Along the side, you see effectively the different sections of the theory of change, that community pillar, the cultural pillar, and the action pillar. So here we are in Q1. We're working on expanding the Together Culture Helper program, and Ellie's going to tell you more about that. We're getting those resolution for regeneration events up and off the ground, and we're working on developing a tech stack 1.5 or 2.0. So really integral for us to be able to track our progress against those KPIs and those OKRs as well. We aim to get, from a culture perspective, we're going to launch the Citizen Studio in February. We have a community board that is supporting how we're analyzing the Citizen Studio. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. And we are going to be launching a plan so you can help us to nominate people who could benefit from Pay What You Can membership. Action. If you don't know yet, we had really good news this week. Our lease has been renewed here at 5 Fitzroy Street until at least the 1st of September, and it's looking highly likely that will be until the 31st of December. The 1st of September was a dawdle paperwork-wise. We just had to take out 6 months and make it 12. It's a little bit more involved to get it to the 31st of December, but we've got a year here, basically, that we can count on. Business unusual launches. And then in terms of external work, there's a piece of work that we're going to be doing with Addenbrooks in terms of developing a community design to bring creative well-being to their workforce. And we are working on finalizing our second contract area. Moving into Q2, hey, incentive to take all of those living book sessions. We are going to, I don't know how we're going to do it. It might be a round of applause and a cake or maybe a special badge, but everybody who participates in all Living the Living Book sessions, they're going to be recognized in some way. It's a big thing in Q2 as well. So everybody who became a founding member because they participated in the Story of Us Studio or they contributed to the crowdfunder, it's renewal time. So we're very much hoping that those people who came on board during that time decide to become a community member or a creative workspace member. We are working on fundraising. We'd really like to bring a marketing manager on board. We need more worker bees. We'll be analyzing the Citizen Studio. The Systems Change Incubator cohort will be recruited in the spring. We're hoping to have raised 35 grand, and we hope that our plan for incorporation in the long-term development at Grafton is underway. And it looks like we're going to be doing some work with Abby outside of 5 Fitzroy Street. Q3, from a community perspective, ding, 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 ding. We're hoping that the majority of events that we hold are actually led by members of the community, as opposed to coming from Ellie and I. It's at this period that we're going to start running surveys to see how Together Culture is working for everybody. We're hoping to have raised another 60 grand. We're hoping that we get the Systems Change Incubator started, and we may be working on a social hub development project with Innovate Cambridge. And then at the end of the year, there's our 400 members secured. Let's make that 9,000. Our Systems Change Incubator prototypes, if we meet our funding goals, hopefully we'll be voting and deciding the first prototype that we're going to invest in as a community. And as I said, I want to close the doors before Christmas with a permanent place or at least a long-term place secured. And my stretch target is £1 million in the bank to make that happen. You made it. You made it. You made it through all of that. So did I. Do you have any questions about this first area of impact, intent, strategy, and operational plan? Yeah, AJ, I'm not sure who went first. Yeah.
What is Abbey?
Oh, sure. Abbey is a neighborhood in the east of Cambridge.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
They support people food banks and stuff. Well, I didn't. In terms of they have a.
So Abbey is well, I'll start with this. Abbey historically is one of the most socioeconomically deprived, if not the most socioeconomically deprived neighborhood in Cambridge. And that came about predominantly because of the displacement of people when the Grafton Center was built. So the people who made their livelihood around this neighborhood. And they were moved to Abbey and moved into the new council houses there. But what wasn't there were places to work or any resources for the community. And so focus on Abbey and the hub at Abbey, which has been there for 10, 20 years, something like that. It's a group of people within the community that started coming together to address that.
Could you go back one slide?
I can.
Yeah, so I was just interested in putting forward that system change incubator prototype to me, and you said your people will vote in terms of where the seed funding will go to. Will the seed funding also come with a whole package of other support like mentorship or skills development and other things that often people actually could benefit from when they start running jobs like that?
Yes, because the vision for it's coming from the community. So we have all of those skills amongst us within the community itself. And we're also bringing all of those things into the business unusual workshops. So absolutely the answer is yes, but I think it won't be external people. So it's not a challenge to the outside world, it's a challenge to people within membership. So the means by which there'll be a program and people will be tapped or asked to provide those different types of support.
Is it currently a limited company?
No,
My more open question, what's your structure at the moment?
that's the
Oh,
first question for the
all right.
parking lot, actually. We're gonna get to that in the fourth section, but thank you. Great question. Anybody online have anything?
Not yet. No.
No, I think we're good. Thank you. Very clear so far.
Are you trying to ask a question?
No, all good.
No. Cool.
I do want to say it's nice that like great and it gives me personally a lot of confidence in the community that this is actually in place. So disrespect, not just winging, really full spirit and done the hard work that can be done and you're constantly doing the hard work. I think you're always about 4 steps ahead.
Thanks, Dan. Are we happy to move on to the next part? Yeah. Great. Don't find these arrows intuitive. Engagement. As I was saying the other night, every time I do this, I feel like I should get down on the knee. Propose. So this is the section where I was going to talk about our community design model and how that responds to the theory of change. And then we're going to talk about fun stuff. And Ellie is going to tell you about some more about her plans as community director. Sure. A model. Right. So some of you may have, well, actually, if you've ever wondered who that guy is in the frame up there, it is a person called Charles Vogel. And I'm an enormous fan of his work. She's showing Charles Vogel. And amongst other things, he wrote this book, The Art of Community, 7 Principles for Belonging. We're in Cambridge, so I will throw out, this is based on work that he did at Yale. And now he has a consultancy where he helps non-for-profit organizations and large corporations like Google develop models for creating communities that develop and embody a culture. And he's been really supportive of us. And the night before we opened, some of you may have heard him say, we had a California Connects to Cambridge call, and he touched base with us to see how we were doing and gave us feedback on all of our plans to make sure that the way that we've interpreted and innovated his work made sense and was moving in the right direction. That was great. And FYI, it is my ambition. So people do tell me, I would love to do a book club and to get a lot of us reading and talking about this together so we all become community design experts. That's my dream, but it could mean me being a slot and fascinated by something that doesn't fascinate others. So what this is based on Vogel's idea of the inner rings. And we've taken it and we've evolved it a bit. So the inner rings model basically considers circles because what it's doing is saying that the people who have the roles at the center of the circle have the most responsibility for the people who sit in front of them on the circle. So every level of this concentric circle, there's a degree of responsibility. So it's just about how much responsibility and accountability you hold. What it's not about is power over, and what it's not about is hierarchy. It's about service. And so this is broken down into 4 quadrants. So the first quadrant are the roles that we've established within the community. And then the second quadrant over here on the right, it helps you to understand the products, the different activities that are core to Together Culture that are designed to enable us to deliver against that service that those roles are intended for. This quadrant down here indicates the degree to which it is collaborative, meaning everything that we do, if you're here, you're participating, you're collaborating. The roles on the outside are kind of co-creative. You're bringing your own personal flavor to how we deliver activities. The roles closer to the center are co-design. You're helping to embody and to develop the strategy. So it's a bit deeper. And then that living book is what's represented here in the 4th quadrant. So obviously the different behaviors and values of the living book are interchangeable, but the more you lean into the center, the more mastery of certain types of behaviors and tools are actually imperative to be able to be of service to the rest of the community. So I'm going to start on the outside and then work in spiral formation. So on the outside, I'm going to be in community roles to start. So we're all here. We're all Together Culture members. And as Together Culture members, that means that we are either community or creative workspace members, and we come along to events and participate in programming. And that's terrific. And that's a co-creative role, because everything here is designed to be collaborative and people are making a contribution when they are turning up, and they're turning up with openness, curiosity, and they're bringing their own opinions, skills, talents, and experiences to the group. The second ring here are Together Culture helpers. So those are people like Bisha who are working on concierge, and they are actively helping to recruit and make everybody's life here at Together Culture happier. And there are a number of different things that Together Culture helpers can do. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the future. Over here, what I really wanted to point out is why we have a Together Culture Helpers program. Yes, is so members within the community can help other members. But the real intent long-term is for those jobs to be new types of work within the creative economy. So a lot of that work is care work. A lot of that work is imaginative ideas work. A lot of work that that a lot of us volunteer our time to do. It's work that we know is essential to have a healthy, functional community. I mean, not just within Together Culture, but within the world in general. And what we are trying to do with our business model is to prove that there's value in this, and people should be able to train up and to do this type of work as a career. And that's co-creative. You can see helping others' skills are clearly quite important to be able to do those jobs. The next layer is the Community Development Board. It's currently populated by founding members. And what the Community Development Board does is help to analyze the Citizen Studio, and they're helping us to develop our participatory democracy practices, meaning how we make decisions as a membership at Together Culture. So that's very clearly in the co-design area of work, and collaborating is really important. And then we go into the next layer, which we're calling our creative economy co-designers. Effectively, those are the folks that participate in the Systems Change Incubator and are coming along to business as usual as a start. That's co-designing, and the skills of experimenting are absolutely critical to be able to do that well. And then in the center, you've got the founders. Eventually that'll say senior exec team. And that our job is effectively to hold this framework together and to constantly be assessing and to make sure that we are performing against our impact measures and for those to iterate as necessary, and our plans to iterate as necessary as we go. Our community board, what is it? Just so you know, these are not actually the members of the community board. It's just an illustrated picture because the community board has never taken a picture together, and that is, we have a board meeting tonight, so I will perhaps address it then. The current board, just so you know, people you might know: Chris Poynton, Lucy Gonzalez, Ladu Omadai, that is Ladu Omadai if you haven't met her before, Rachel Andre, and Tina Roche. They are all founding members of Together Culture. What they've been doing is supporting with fundraising. They've been supporting awareness and member recruitment. They're helping to develop the Citizen Studio analysis methods. We're developing the incubator, and Adrienne, to your point, how we're going to operate that, and effectively the decision-making process for both. We are looking to expand the population of the Community Development Board. First and foremost, we now have this big creative workspace membership and community membership, which we didn't have when we got it started. So we'd very much like some people, anybody interested, to put themselves forward if they are workspace or community members to join the Community Development Board. And in terms of making sure that we are diversely representative of our population, we're aware that we don't have a neurodiverse person sitting on our Community Development Board as of yet, and that is something that we would like to address. In terms of the first Systems Change Incubator cohort, if anybody sat here thinking they are interested, what I wanted to say was, please participate in Business Unusual as much as you can. Please come to a Citizen Studio session. I think they're most likely going to be prereqs for people to participate in the Systems Change Incubator. What you're going to be doing is learning about systems change and building a systems change map that responds to the priorities that emerge from the Citizen Studio. So we're going to be looking at, this is the landscape of, so for instance, say the priority that comes out of the Citizens Studio is, we want to feed hungry people and develop new agroecological food businesses. What we're going to be doing then is a piece of landscaping work to figure out, well, what are the problems and opportunities in Cambridge? What's happening out there now? What does that network look like? And where are the holes? Where are the gaps where we can have impact? And how do we define what that impact is, given the resources that we've got as well? So once we do that piece of work, then we set out challenges so that there's a frame, an impact frame. So it's not just doing anything, but it's doing stuff that matters. So the other point I just wanted to make about this is we don't feel as though you have to be an entrepreneur to participate. There will be entrepreneurs there. There will be people who have a lot of experience guiding it. By design, we're very much hoping that people who are just creative and curious about the process participate as well, so it isn't just the typical entrepreneurial mindset that is being captured. You're going to need to participate in about 4 sessions from Q3, and you don't have to commit to anything now, but have that sense of, you know, if I really like this process of just kind of doing the systems mapping and doing the ideation work, I might be willing to be a co-founder and to go full hog and to work over the next year to develop a prototype. In the back of your mind. More on this will come, but I just wanted to set the scene for everyone. And Ellie's going to chat.
Right, yeah, so we, as Heather said, we want to grow to 400 members. So that's doubling and then potentially exceeding, hopefully. This is a snapshot of our community journey plan. So moving from people becoming aware of who we are to perhaps having a Together Culture experience here, to becoming a member and then to becoming more deeply engaged as a member. And so Heather's been covering a lot of this, so I'll kind of talk a little bit about how we can work together at the front end of the journey. So in terms of getting people to be aware of Together Culture, we are active on social media, we use flyering, we work with partners, We know the number one way to get more people involved is for you guys to refer. Member referral is the biggest thing. We've experienced it already. That's how a lot of you guys have come to find us. So, and it just means that we're much more likely to find people that share our values and kind of are willing to get involved, because you know people who will perhaps get value from being part of the community. If you are recommending to go coach to someone, it might be really great to invite them to an event. We know that is how many of our engaged people become members, is they kind of attend an event, get a little bit of a sense of what we're about. So what you can do is you can invite them along to lunch. We're going to be running lunch and learn sessions every month. We've got a lot of those coming up this year, and they're a really good chance to meet other members. We'll take a little tour, give a bit of an introduction to the community so people can get a sense of what the culture is all about. Similarly with orientation, that did used to be just for new members, and now we've opened it up because we think it's a great chance. Why not get some new curious folk in to kind of learn a little bit more and meet other members is always the best way. And Saturday Lounge is really exciting. We had our first one in December, and we've got the next one coming up next weekend already, so that's really great. And we've got some people in the room who are taking part in that. It's a really good way to contribute to the programme, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a second. But it's also a really good way to introduce people who have not been into the space before. It's open to the entire neighbourhood. So it's quite a fun way to see Together Culture being Together Culture. We're all together, building bonds, sharing experiences. So it's a really good way for people to get a taste of what it's all about. In terms of conversion, Heather mentioned the pipeline. We keep an active pipeline, and membership conversion rate is about 10% at the moment. So bearing in mind that we need to reach about 100 more members to hit our goal, about 100 of them will come from our partnership with ARU, a big old chunk from our partnership with ARU. So if we're aiming to get 100 members over the next 12 months, at least, it's about 8 members a month. So if I can keep a really warm pipeline of about 25 new members each month, you guys can help me with that. That makes a huge difference. And there's always that trust there, and that kind of, they're already warm prospects because you're recommending people who you think, you know what, they're really going to get value from Together Culture, or maybe they are going to be interested. So it's a really great way of growing the community in a really natural and meaningful way. So, slide. And becoming a helper is a great way to support the community. It is about all of you guys getting ownership over the space and us running this space together. So the different ways to be involved. Concierge team, which Bisha is demonstrating beautifully at the moment. So it's giving a warm welcome to visitors. It is kind of keeping the space nice and clean and beautiful for everyone, and also helping research to make sure we're building that awareness and educating people as well. So that's an option. Our buddies team is something that's come from the community. It's we heard that you guys wanted ways to meet each other, to make connections, find people who maybe have similar interests. So we are implementing a buddy system, but we have a group of people to lead on that and really take that and run with it. And eventually become leaders of orientation sessions, because it's a great way for new members to get to know what the community is all about, straight from the members. We are going to be starting our stories team. So this is really about getting all the amazing stories that we have in our membership out to the wider world, through blogs online, perhaps Instagram takeovers, and also through the lunch and learn events that I mentioned earlier. Just a really great way of sharing experiences and get people to understand what it's meant for you personally. And finally, I mentioned the Living Book earlier. We are going to be developing a second edition. And that is something that we'd love to be led by a group, a team of members who will have graduated from the Living Book series of workshops, and eventually hopefully be running them as well, which will be really cool. So if you are interested in either recruiting members, if you've got people in mind that you think would be great to join, or you would like to become a Together Culture helper, we do have a phone sheet on the concierge desk. We can send me an email. And finally, yeah, member-led events. I touched on this briefly already, but it's sure, yeah. Sorry, little voice. Yeah, for member-led events, what we want to, we're aware that every member has amazing ideas, and all these ideas can become businesses, even if it doesn't always feel like it. We are in this community trying to support the creative economy in Cambridge. So how do we get you from, okay, I've got this idea, I think I want to run an event, to, okay, here's your customer base. They're here, shortening the distance between the two and getting things to the ground. Saturday Lounge is a really good way to test ideas, to run events, to reach new people, to get a sense of what works and what doesn't. So we really encourage you to experiment with different things. We put out an open call every month. So if you're not subscribed to the mailing list, just shout and we can get you on there, and that's where you'll hear about it. And you can get started with some events. We've just put the call out for February. So if that's something that's of interest, then do let me know. And also, yeah, we have Andrew here has been running a repair cafe, which, yeah, I've started up the Together Culture Repair Cafe, but there's lots of ideas I know for events. Jen's going to be running something soon as well. So yes, if you are interested in running events, please do shout. We can get something in the diary, we can just get something up and running, and then we can iterate and see what works and what doesn't. But it just makes the program so much more rich when there's a range from the members. And we know you've got amazing skills and talents, and we want to share them. That just a little bit more detail, and I won't hold on that too long, but just a bit more info if anyone's interested about how the targets are working. So again, questions, any areas around you'd like to greater clarity around, anything that excites you, or any yes and comments?
When you say members, is that, what are the categories of members that we have at the moment? Is it still very much between the kind of community workspace members versus, like, basically there are two types of members at the moment, or is that? And then do you envision kind of different forms of membership, or how
At the moment, yeah, good question. At the moment, we do have the two forms, which are the community and the great workspace, purely just because it is helpful to make that distinction if people want dedicated space. But it is, we really don't want to emphasize too much that it's very much everyone's a member, and it just is maybe a slight difference in needs and how you use the space.
Yeah, sure.
That makes sense.
No, I'm just kind of wondering if there's kind of more grading within that, not as a differential, but to encourage people to use it, because I guess in the Grafton Centre, you might get hundreds of thousands of people over the year come to the city, and they might come once a month, and they might not feel as though they're part enough of Cambridge to engage with something like this. Whereas actually, maybe they're the kind of people who want to come in once a month. When they come do their shopping or whatever, they can come and engage in one of the workshops or something as well.
That's a really great point. Yeah, so we're currently, that's how it stands, but we're always kind of trying to learn how people are using the space. Always open to kind of adapting, I think I'd say that, or judging on what works.
And I will say, when we get to the founding member renewal in the spring, that's going to come up.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of founding members, we don't see them that often because they're not here.
Yeah.
They're in London.
Yeah.
They're
America.
in New York.
Yeah, so definitely trying to tailor it so it works for everyone. Any more questions? Oh yeah, so
Is it useful for when we're using the space for people to like take photos or post on social media about the fact that they're here, and is that sort of diluting anything or disrupting anything, or is that just useful?
that is such, thank you for that. That's amazing. We love it when people do that. If you tag us, we can reshare it, but you don't have to, as long as you're sharing stuff. That's always going to be a help to us. It just helps raise that awareness. Thank you. I'll go check the laptop. I don't think I can see any questions. Okay, I'll pass that and just make sure I'm not missing any.
Before.
How are we doing? Everybody okay? Check time too.
Doing good on time. We're good?
We're all good this
Okay.
time.
Okay, so the money bit. What did the forecast look like? I'm making the assumption, I don't know if it's correct, but the assumption I'm making is the group of people gathered have a different sense of familiarity and comfort with the language of numbers. So I'm actually going to share our forecasts in two forms. So I'm going to make some initial points with bar graphs, and then I'm going to talk you through a top line P&L. To set the base of it all, over the course of 2023, Together Culture's earned revenue from our activities was about £15,000. Together Culture raised around £90,000 in capital. So that just gives you a sense of what we had to do for capital to establish that run rate, to get a prototype off the ground. And so how do we invest to create the situation in which we can actually earn money? Oh, sorry. So the first graph I just want to show you is income. And so Together Culture's prototype income, what our plans are for 2024. I'm going to start on the bottom and to just show you three different categories. One is capital, and the capital that I'm showing you on this graph is the capital that we need to run the prototype for a full year. It's not the capital that we need to open another site. I'm just keeping that separate for the time being. The revenue that we earn from membership, and that membership category also includes events. It includes things like money that we earn when we sell beer or juice at an event, event hire fees, things like that. And creative services, the consultancy work we do outside of 5 Fitzroy Street. So from a capital perspective, it's this light gray bit, and we want to get that capital in around £90,000 worth of it in Q1 and Q2. That's the plan. One reason for needing it in Q1 is I think many of you are aware that we had a huge disappointment and a highly unexpected disappointment in September when we didn't get a grant that we were anticipating from the combined authority. And so basically what that means is we're carrying debt right now. So we haven't been able to pay off the design or the build of 5 Fitzroy. So that has to be paid off before we progress. So that's why it's so early in the year. And then as far as membership is concerned, this is where we are in Q1. And then you see it growing across the year. And effectively what you're seeing in Q2 and Q3, yes, that's new people, but that's also hopefully the renewal of founding members who decide to stick with us and keep supporting Together Culture. And then the darkest gray shade are anticipated pieces of work that we'll have for our creative services. And the point that I really wanted to make there too was what we're earning from our work here at 5 Fitzroy Street and what we're earning outside of 5 Fitzroy Street is pretty much neck and neck. So we anticipate around £60,000 worth of income over the course of 2024 from each of those sources.
You say creative services, you and Ellie, or is that you, Ellie, and other people that would bring in to help on a particular?
So it's predominantly me plus freelancers. And it is a conversation that I may be having with some people at Together Culture. Yeah. Okay, so that's money coming in. Then how about the money going out? Where does it go? So costs in 24, 3 categories: our premises, people, and programming. So our premises, the darkest gray. So you can see how in Q1 and Q2, it's higher than it is at the end of the year. That reflects paying off that debt that I was talking about in terms of the retrofit of this space. In terms of staff, you can see we're hoping to be able to increase that over the course of the year. 2 reasons. Ellie and I are both we pay ourselves when we can. We're freelancers right now. So we pay ourselves when we're able to. We're hoping that that situation will change over the course of this year. And we're also hoping to bring on a marketing manager. And as we move towards the end of the year, I'd very much like to bring on another senior person who can be supporting me in developing operations for a scaled up site if we're working towards developing our permanent space in 2025. And some of this is also reflecting the Together Culture helpers who work on concierge. And we're also hoping to expand the Together Culture helpers program and what we're paying those folks over the course of the year. And then a little bit is what we pay, the money that we spend on programming. I'd love it to be more. Most people who are delivering events are doing it as a volunteer. We'd like to be able to move towards being able to pay people for their creative services. And most of what this is are expenses, travel expenses, and then materials that we need to run programs. Okay, so what does that start to look like in table format? So this is just our top line forecasts or profit and loss statement for 2024. Across the top, you see quarters. So these are 3-month periods. And then you see the totals at the end. Along the side, our first area, which is income, seed capital, and then different areas of earned revenue, the subtotal of earned revenue, and then our total income. And then on the bottom, costs, different areas of costs. The subtotal, I've whacked on 5% of contingency for the unexpected that we can expect because it always happens. And then the orange bit on the bottom is our EBITDA, or effectively what our cash position looks like before we pay taxes. So seed capital. So this is that 90 to 100,000 pounds that we aim to raise in the first 6 months of this year. Towards the end of the year, that's that £1 million stretch target that we hope to have in the bank for moving into permanent digs in 25. In terms of our earned revenue, so the creative services line, the reason it's spread across the quarters as it is because it's conversations that are already happening around pieces of work that we aim to close. So this shows you we aim to earn 60 grand over the course of the year from that work. Then we have membership, our membership fees, membership services. This is refreshments, event hire, etc. Events, and by events, I mean tickets to events. One thing that you might find interesting is we don't anticipate earning, we do have a pay what you can model for our events. We don't anticipate earning a boatload of money from that. We hope that this changes someday, particularly when we move forward. But as it stands right now, what we found is that it's really an entry point. It's a model for people to, a lot of those events, the people who come to it who are not members, it's how they're trying Together Culture. It's a great way to recruit new members as well. So this might be more over the course of the year, but I'm not projecting it to be. I'm basing it on what happened last year. So our earned revenue forecast is around £125,000 for this financial year. And then add $1 million to that, 1.2 is what we hope with our capital raise that we will realize in terms of income in 24. Then when we look at our costs, again, as far as premises are concerned, you can see how it's steeper in the first 2 quarters. Again, that represents paying off designers and construction workers, and then how that progresses as we move through the year. So these premises will cost us £34,000 over the course of 24. Staffing, if all goes to plan, about £100,000, and programming about £6,000. So our total costs are anticipated to be about £150,000, or closer to 160 if I add a bit of contingency, which gives us a cash position outcome at the end of the year of £1,066,000. I'm hoping that we have that bit of surplus because hopefully that means we can put something between £10,000 and £20,000 into a Systems Change Incubator prototype. So scaling up. Oh yeah, go for it.
So am I
Taryn.
missing, sorry,
Yeah.
am I missing something? Shortfall is £1 million. And, you might have said this already, where do you spend that come from?
I'll get to it. Yep, I'm going to show you. Just the money
Is
tree,
it a-
Dan.
Is it a picture of Bill Gates or something like that? With his hand out?
No. We've been doing a lot of work on that. I've seen presentations like that, which I'm assuming you've seen presentations. Our fundraising plan is Warren Buffett. Yeah. Yes, we've all seen that. Okay, so scaling up. So the first thing I'm going to talk you through is where do I get to that £1 million? Why is that what I think? Why is that the amount of money that I think we need? So in terms of scaling up, number one, I want to make the point that we do have scenarios for what a scaled up venue looks like. And so this is the work that we've been doing, amongst other things, with Abe Rogers over the course of the past couple of years, because there have been a number of different options that have presented themselves as far as a prospective, long-term / permanent space. So the scenario that I just want to show you is the scenario that existed when it looked like we were going to take over Debenhams at the Grafton Center. Debenhams is being demolished now. It'll be part of the workspace and the biotech laboratory space. But this gives you a sense of what that scenario was. So this is where it is in Cambridge. These were the multiple uses that we planned within that space. And this was at the time what we were thinking about in terms of our user base. So how we were addressing needs that people have. The point that I want to make is the plan is always to provide integral regenerative social infrastructure. God, that's not high and mighty, doesn't it? For Cambridge. So what infrastructure does Cambridge need to not just create a community like together culture for our members, but what other services would we be able to have within our space that provides support for people who aren't necessarily members? So we've got this small living room now. We would anticipate having much more space. That's always been the vision. And the types of things that oh gosh, I'm sorry. The types of things that we planned on having in that space were community energy and growing projects, a library of things, permanent repair cafe, Andrew, a maker space. And yes, we've been talking to Jonathan about this. In fact, Jonathan got psyched on Tuesday night. It looks like we're going to have a prototype maker space installed here later this year, a creche of some format, and some form of community kitchen that is a place where we can break bread and also support food startups, people in that space. So and when we get to it and we know the space that we are actually going to have, obviously we're going to be working with all of you and with the neighborhood that we're in to make final decisions about the different types of services that we're going to provide. Clearly, it's about physical infrastructure with our community infrastructure and our social infrastructure plan coming together, which is what we believe makes it more impactful. Yes, I think there was one more point I was going to make, and it's completely slipped my mind, so I'm going to leave it there for the time being. Now, what does that look like in terms of our targeted building spec? We're looking for around 30,000 square feet. As far as the workspaces are concerned, we anticipate being able to provide 100 to 200 workspaces, and for them to vary in size much more than what we have now. So hopefully 150 to 500 square feet. So Chris, also to answer your question, this is where different types of memberships are going to fit into the mix as well. Not just for people who are far flung, but for people who are here and different types of need for workspace unto itself. At least 1,000 square feet of communal space, and then some of the other needs that need to be coming up over and over again. At least 1,000 square feet of jam space and gallery space that could be quite flexible, and things like
What do you mean by
jam space, places to play, not just to play music, and not just for performance, but for musicians to come together, and for there to be AV and tech facilities that they can use for the process of creation, not just performance, and to meet one another. Event space so that we can have more of an events higher business, if you will, but then also provide support for more community organizations and some storage. We're hearing over and over and over again that people need storage space in central Cambridge. And so it's not vastly profitable, which is why none of the big property developers do it. But people need it, and they want to do it for people that they trust. So we're quite sure that that would be a really helpful ancillary revenue stream, and will support a heck of a lot of people, including artists who need some place to store their work.
What do you mean exactly by making space?
Kester, actually, since you're here, would you like to? Oh, sorry, did I totally put you on the spot? Okay.
So make space is kind of like outlets or hacker spaces. It's essentially, there's one in Cambridge. It's a community run workshop where you have all the tools that you could possibly need for making like laser cutters, industrial kind of workshop, machinery, as well as electronics, and there's all those kind of things. So yeah, community physical artwork.
And so our hope and our ambition is that, good Lord, our hope and our ambition is that these services aren't just for the wider community, but hopefully it makes it a creative workspace par excellence, if you will. So everything that you need at your fingertips. And in terms of our commitment to providing affordable workspace, it means people who prospectively wouldn't normally have access to these facilities. It's not just about the network and the community and that sense of belonging, but it's also, wow, I can really top up my skills. I can really play. I can really experiment in ways that I never would have been able to. And then just to give you a sense, so forecasting work, because so this is a bit old. This was from this was a 2022 scenario, but it responds to that that Debenhams, the prospective Debenhams space. But this gives us a sense of what it looks like financially. So I'm not going to talk you through all of this. I mean, you're welcome to look at it, but it was from modeling like this, that retrofit was going to cost about 1.3 million. So that's where I'm coming to that 1 million figure, and we probably need more. We were forecasting about $1 million in turnover by year 4 with those varied revenue streams, and an 850K cash position if we can get all the seed capital in so that we start to build our reserves, because those reserves mean leverage, scale, and then investing in new prototypes that keep rolling out of the incubator every year. One thing that isn't in here, and one of the things that I need to be working with some financial advisors on this year, is what our modeling actually looks like in terms of, because that prototype, that's going to be an equity investment too. So the membership is making an equity investment in other members. So there'll be return to Together Culture, as well as to the members who become co-founders. So in this scenario, we were looking long-term meant a 7-year lease with a 5-year break. It meant 200 studios at 80% occupancy. It meant 300 memberships. So obviously that's changed now because we'll have hit that. It meant 6 months rent-free, and it meant still maintaining a status where we get preferential business rates from the council, which we have now. And I'm going to get into incorporation next. Does anybody have any other questions on money in the future?
I apologise, I have to leave. We have parents' night at school this afternoon.
I knew that actually.
Yeah, so
okay.
I thought I'd wait for a break.
Great.
But this is fantastic. Thank you for doing this. Yes, yeah,
Okay.
very, and like spurring some ideas, which is great.
Bye, Richard. We'll
All
see you
right,
soon.
cheers. Okay, bye-bye.
And
All right,
it's going
nice
to
to
talk
meet
on
you.
the next, the 27th of January, actually. If you
Yeah.
want to learn more about Richard's work in the music scene in Austin.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Bye. Any other questions, or anybody else need to depart? Okay, I'm gonna feel like I need to be defensive. I'm really doing what I said we're gonna finish early too. Okay, capital raise. Andrew, your question is finally going to be answered. Our incorporation model. Daniel, your question around where we're gonna get the money from, and then this idea of community shares. This is our incorporation model. So we, in 21, incorporated 2 different organizations. They are sympathetic to one another, but they are completely separate. So do not get the idea of umbrella or parent company in your head, because that is not the situation. But we couldn't get to where we were now if we hadn't incorporated 2 distinct organizations. And I'm going to explain why. So we'll start with Together Culture Cambridge Community Interest Company. That's what CIC stands for. So Together Culture Cambridge CIC, when you pay your membership fees, you're paying it to Together Culture Cambridge CIC. So a CIC is limited by guarantee, which means it is not limited by share. So no one will ever take any dividends out of any profits that Together Culture makes. It's impossible because it's asset locked. So that means we can make profit. In fact, we're encouraged to make profit because it means that we're providing needed services to the community and we're raising money that can be used against our mission. But it all has to be used against that impact plan that we've laid out. We are eligible for business rates reduction. So we get a 75% reduction in business rates from the council. So it's quite significant. If we are dissolved, so once we go through the administration process, we pay off all of our debts. If there's anything left over, we had to nominate a like-minded organization to get what was get the rest of it, and that is Cambridge Junction. We are not yet VAT registered because we haven't reached the VAT threshold, and we want to avoid the work and the money required to make quarterly VAT reports until we have to. Now, the other organization is Cambridge Imagination Limited. And no, the university doesn't know that we named it that. I've been hearing that a lot of people with Cambridge in their title have been getting cease and desist letters from the university. The university wants to own Cambridge. Yeah, so I'm keeping it quiet, but Companies House was fine with it. So it is Cambridge Imagination Limited is a company limited by share. And Cambridge Imagination Limited was developed for 2 purposes. One, to invest in Together Culture. So how do I get money from individuals and from business angels? How do I incentivize people to invest so I can get money to Together Culture? So Cambridge Imagination Limited, in part, is a vehicle to do that because, and I'll show you in a minute, the breakdown of our funds. But as far as business angels are concerned, the people who put money into Together Culture are not the Jeff Bezos of the world. They are people who can afford to invest £20,000 or £10,000, but it's not something they do on a regular basis. It's something they have a little extra in their savings account. It's that sort of a thing. So Cambridge Imagination Limited has SEIS incentive status confirmed by HMRC. So what that means is if you invest in Cambridge, if you put £20,000 into Cambridge Imagination and you are a UK taxpayer, then HMRC gives you an income tax reduction up to 50% of the value of your investment. So if you put 20 grand in, you get a £10,000 tax refund. So that's one of the reasons why we did it. Now, Cambridge Imagination Limited, you know how I keep talking about how we've adapted Charles Vogel's community framework and we have our own co-design methodology. Basically all the stuff that we did to develop our theory of change, that process, that's a knowledge asset. And it's held by Cambridge Imagination. And so those creative services pieces of work that we do are invoiced by Cambridge Imagination. And then it gets invested in Together Culture. And in our articles of association and in our investor agreements, it dictates that that's what has to happen. Cambridge Imagination Limited also has registered and owns the brand name Together Culture. Not Together Culture Cambridge, but Together Culture. So Cambridge Imagination is the vehicle through which we can take the methods that we use to develop Together Culture Cambridge, and we could establish Together Culture Halifax, or Together Culture Manchester, or Together Culture New Haven, Connecticut, if we want to sort out the mess that Yale made someday. That's the thinking. We can't do it with Together Culture Cambridge CIC. We can do it with Cambridge Imagination Limited. And because we would never replicate anything, we would only adapt and use our methods to figure out what works for local people in their local neighborhood. That's why it makes sense for it to sit with Cambridge Imagination. And it is that registered. Somebody asked me that once. So raising capital, blended finance approach. So we raised 93 grand to date. The private investment that went via Cambridge Imagination was about £50,000 of that. The money that we've earned via creative services from Cambridge Imagination was around 30 grand. ARU thus far, that's going to increase this year, but they put about £5,000 into Together Culture getting started. And then this summer when we ran that crowdfunder, we raised £8,000. So that's where I get to that £93,000 figure. In terms of our top line capital prospects, a big piece of work that I've been doing over the past year is developing the relationships to get us in, to well position us for funding from a massive fund that the City Council has been establishing. It's called the Cambridge City Council Social Innovation Fund. And they are looking for organizations like Together Culture to invest in. It is a blended finance fund, so it's grant, it's loan, it's equity. So effectively, it exists to be able to close the social equality gap in Cambridge. And they need people, what makes us really distinctive is all the stuff I was talking about in the beginning. Who are the people who are at the grassroots, establishing the prototypes, and providing people with the skills so that they can become more actively involved and benefit from the local economy. And that's what makes us distinct. We have an opportunity prospectus that we've created together with them. Their MD was appointed at the end of last year. She starts next week, and I'm seeing her in February. So we, and some of our members sit on the development committee of this fund. So we've been working really hard to put us in a very preferential position to be beneficiaries of this. One of the reasons that we're developing partnerships is because I want to just be open and say this is somewhat controversial, because the Cambridge City Council has to fundraise to pull together the money for the fund in the first place. And they are fundraising from other local authorities like the Combined Authority. They are fundraising from private individuals, large philanthropists, and also from trusts and foundations. So a lot of our friends who are not-for-profits are not altogether happy with this, because this will be the primary significant focus of investment by the City Council. And they are concerned that the landscape is going to become even more competitive for them as grants-based organizations. So that's also why we, amongst other things, we're working with the Cambridge Science Centre around how they might have a base within Together Culture moving forward, so we can make this work for everyone. Thank you to everybody. When people come in wearing suits and are awkwardly looking around and kind of peering into your fishbowl, a lot of those people are private individuals who are business angels who are thinking about investing. So there's a pipeline of those folks as well. We've been working with the Heritage Lottery Fund, or the National Heritage Lottery Fund, for quite some time to develop a relationship, because a lot of our work has to do with building on cultural heritage, how we got to the place that we are now, and how we're going to change it and create new, more equitable economic culture. So they're looking very kindly upon us. Our hope, and what we started talking to Grafton about, is we'd like to move into the Wilco building. if we can do, down the street. So that's our top choice. I don't know if we're going to get it, but we're being very vocal about the fact that we want it. And it's a listed building, folks. Sorry, I didn't make that clear. So that's also part of this connection. When we get to the point of moving into a permanent space, we're going to run another crowdfunder. And hopefully the building sparks a lot of interest and a lot of passion amongst people as well, because clearly what we want to do is really reinvent what the high street is all about. So we're hoping that that sparks a lot of romantic interest in people, and they will support us. And then as we progress, we may move from being a community interest company to a community benefit society, and we may do a big share sale or together culture. And so this is the idea that I wanted to run past you. A lot of folks were interested in this on Tuesday night. Maybe some of you will be too. So to meet some of our early stage capital requirements, what we wanted to do is offer some shares of Cambridge Imagination to anybody who might be interested in buying them. So we are offering, and by we, I mean the directors and the investors as they stand now, 2% ownership of Cambridge Imagination, and we're assuming that would likely be a consortium of members. We're selling 5,000 ordinary shares at £2 a share. So we're trying to make it as accessible as possible. Our total raise that we are hoping to achieve is £10,000. And just to remind you, there's SEIS eligibility. So if you decided to put £500 in, it would cost you £250 because you would most likely, I should say, get money back from HMRC. And the idea is it limits your risk. The current market valuation based on our future cash flows is £1 million at present. Clearly, we hope that grows, but the point being is at some point, we would intend to buy back what you put in at a greater amount. We do have a March deadline for participation if anybody is interested in this, and that has to do with this SEIS eligibility. You only have it for a limited period of time, so I can't guarantee it beyond March. And it's also because it takes time to process. So the SEIS eligibility extends a little bit beyond that, but we're going to need that because we need investor agreements, and there's a process of paperwork with HMRC that's required to get everybody their tax refunds. And that's that. Survived. Anybody have any questions about any of that?
Who are the directors for Cambridge Imagination?
Myself and Hannah, our other co-founder, who's based in Cornwall. So she does a lot of the creative services work too. She was on screen. Yeah. That's how it stands at present. I mean, and clearly it'll extend beyond it someday, but as we're just getting started, that's what seemed most appropriate. Everybody's mauling, huh? Tired. I know it's a lot to take in, but thank you for being champions.
Can this be emailed to us?
We're going to email it to everybody. We've recorded it, so we're going to have, it's a 2-hour session, I know, but everybody will have the recording available to them, and we'll be PDFing this and sending it out to everybody. If you are interested in any of the opportunities that we talked about, from Together Culture members to becoming a shareholder of Cambridge Imagination, sign-up sheets there. I'm Heather at togetherculture.com, or you can just talk to me. Yeah. Okay, great. Super. Yeah. And we just threw this in because one of the questions was, okay, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do on Tuesday night? And then one of the points I just wanted to make, just please drop by whenever you want. Please do think of this as your living room. One of the things I heard this week from Pioneer Development is the more we see people here, the better. The more inclined we are to give you more space. I'm just being honest. So, and they're normally here during normal working hours. So just come in, do yoga. I don't care. Have a coffee, read a book. If you're involved in a book club, bring them here. I mean, that's what the space is for. So don't worry about it. Just be comfortable. Take a nap if you need to.
Pioneer or the development vehicle for after.
You got it. Yep. So don't just being here is the point that I want to make. It actually has value in terms of big picture future. Introduce your friends to Together Culture. Bring them in to a lunch and learn session. It's really, really helpful. As Ellie was saying, it's the #1 way we recruit more members. I don't know if I mentioned it, but please participate in the Citizen Studio. Really important. Yeah, and consider hosting your own ticketed events, becoming a helper, joining the Community Development Board, or buying shares. Those are the things that we talked about today. All right, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
It feels very formal. It's not like a typical Together Culture thing. There is a space and time, I think, for the more corporate type events. I also want to, I think we're breaking up. I want to say maybe everybody could turn and wave to the folks who've been online. Really, thanks for joining us. We'll be following up with emails soon. Bye. 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 My aunt was here from New York watching all of this. So cute.